Book talks about public speaking and critical thinking. As you study public speaking, you hopefully will be able to spot weaknesses in other people's arguments and avoid them in your own. That's a very, very important thing, to avoid lacks of logic in your own public speaking or in your own thinking, and also to be able to see it in others. The book talks about the speech communication process. Typically, I use a blackboard here, and I'll draw it up here, and I may insert somewhere in here as I go along when I lecture. In a different forum, I may actually go and do the thing on the blackboard. The public speaking process has the speaker. The speaker encodes a message, sends it through a channel, and that message then is received by a listener. And of course, now the way they do it now is there's a sender receiver and a sender receiver. It's received by a listener. That listener is, at the same time as they are listening, they're also sending messages. They might be puzzled. They might be something that's said might make them mad. That feedback is a part of that process, and it goes back and forth. Within any environment, and of course, what you have to have is you have to have overlapping, and if you think about it this way, if I can demonstrate it here, you have to have overlapping, and I draw circles on the board typically, but you have to have overlapping communication environments. If there's someone in China who speaks Chinese and I'm here and I speak English and we're never in the same room, we're never going to communicate, and we're not going to ever communicate because our environments don't overlap. Even if we were in the same room, if we don't speak the same language, it may be very difficult to communicate. The more your communication environments overlap, the easier it is to communicate. Part of that's just knowing each other. I've been married 40 years, actually 41, and there are times when my wife and I will be in a conversation with somebody else, and I'll turn and I'll look at her, and she will look back at me. Now, sometimes she may nod, or she may not nod at all, may just look back. If she nods, I know the answer is yes, and if she doesn't, I know the answer is no. A lot of times I'm asking her a question. She knows by looking at her, I'm asking her a question about something that was said and what I should do or say possibly after that. And so that's just a huge overlapping communication environment. Now, within these environments, within the situation, any communication that you may do, whether it's interpersonal communication, public speaking, whatever it might be, within that, there is the chance for interference. Now, the interference can be physical noise, literally noise in the room. It's kind of hard to understand what he's saying. I usually have my students all rattle their desk or move their desk or move their books around, and that gets demonstrated. There are two other types of noise that can come into play. One is physiological noise. Physiological noise is noise where something inside of your body is affecting you in a way that makes it hard for you to listen or possibly to communicate effectively. It can be that you're tired. Maybe you didn't have enough sleep last night. It could be that you're hungry. Maybe you haven't had breakfast yet today. When you're listening to this, have breakfast and come back and listen to the rest, because if you're hungry, it affects those physiological things. Having a headache. I become almost non-functional when I have a headache. That's problematic for me because I have to stop the headache before I can do a lot of other things. So there can be the physiological noise. And the final thing can be psychological noise. Psychological noise are things going on in our head that affect whether we can process something accurately and or speak and communicate to someone else accurately and effectively. Psychological noise can derail all kinds of things. I don't know if you ever had this happen, but if you're in an interpersonal communication conversation and the person that you're speaking to, you're currently mad at, you're angry at that person, it will be very, very hard to listen to that person and really receive the message effectively. Talks about public speaking in a multicultural world. We have a great deal of cultural diversity. And it's a very important thing to accept that diversity, embrace that diversity, and treat everybody in your audience with fairness. I've been saying this far before this year happened and all the things that have happened. And I've been saying that we should always treat everybody equally in our classroom. We are going to treat everybody equally. We're not going to use terminology that is in some way insulting or degrading to another group. We're just not going to do it. We have to also avoid what's called ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is and we'll get back more into this thing about treating everybody equally when we get to the thing on ethics in just a minute, the chapter on ethics, that's chapter 2. Ethnocentrism, though, is the feeling that your culture, your ethnic culture, is somehow inherently superior to someone else's for no other reason than that it's yours. And it's just not the case. And so the more we become less ethnocentric, the better off we are going to be as a group, as a society, and as individuals in this class, I think it will help you a great deal. And that's chapter 1. We will go to chapter 2 next.